Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, wanted to seek the blessing of Radha Madhava, Radha Shyamsundar, Krishna Balram, Bal Gopal, Nrsimhadev, Bhagwan, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Shishi Gaunitai, Tulsimani, Haridas Thakur, Guru Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So, continuing on, ninth chapter, the Damoda Leela, 22nd verse. While Mother Yashoda was very busy with household affairs, the Supreme Lord Krishna observed twin trees known as the Yamalarjun, which in a former millennium had been the demigod sons of Kuver. So, what happened? There he is heading towards them. At the sound of the word, I think we've read. Anyway, let's read this again. Yogurt. Krishna became aware of his hunger. The skirmish with his mother crossed the timeline of several meals during which he had not eaten anything, but he was still very sharp. Silly, your mother is at my house. Why bother her? Some of you should run to your homes and see what is available. In great happiness, the boys would run home and bring whatever was available and feed Krishna. In this way, they enjoyed a picnic. Then Krishna started to test the mortar. How heavy was it? He started pulling the mortar. To the applause of his friends, Krishna slowly dragged the mortar here and there, occasionally sitting down to catch his breath. His mother's final words to him were still ringing in his ears. My dear boy, your whimsical conduct has now come to an end. If you think you're so clever, then free yourself of this rope. Go ahead, pull the mortar behind you and go wherever you like. There you go. He's pulling it here and there. To the delight of his friends, he was pulling the mortar. But where would he go? Aware that his mother could easily hear the Gopas cheer, Krishna placed his finger to his lips to calm them. Then he remembered Narad's curse to the demigods. Recognizing the two stately Arjun trees, he decided to invoke his divine powers to liberate the demigods trapped in the trees. Krishna remembered the past lives of these demigods. So, text number 23. In their former birth, these two sons, known as Nalakuver and Manigriva, were extremely opulent and fortunate. But because of pride and false prestige, they did not care about anyone. And thus Narad Muni cursed them to become trees. So that's the end of chapter 9. We continue with chapter 10. Krishna remembered the past lives of these demigods. They were the sons of Kuver, lived a carefree life of opulence and sense enjoyment. Unlike their father, who dutifully managed the wealth of both the demigods and men, Nalakuver and Manigriva squandered their time loitering in the Chaitra Ratha garden. Intoxicated and decorating themselves with jewels, they enjoyed the company of young girls. They were intoxicated not just by the Varuni drink, but also by false pride, thinking themselves unconquerable as the sons of Kuver. Once they were enjoying with the Apsaras within the holy water of Ganga. Due to arrogance, the demigods had abused the privilege granted them by Lord Shiva and committed the offense of using a sacred place for sense gratification. Without notice, Narad Muni suddenly appeared. He was absorbed in thoughts of Krishna's childhood pastimes. When the Apsaras noticed Narad, they immediately covered their naked bodies and warned the demigods to do the same. However, the demigods were too intoxicated to hear or understand the warnings given by the girls to cover themselves. Narad thought, the pride of the two demigods needs to be curbed so that they can become eligible for bhakti. Therefore, I will curse them. Although it was an offense on the part of Narad to curse the demigods, yet he also wanted to give them the opportunity to these two demigods to get direct vision of Krishna. So this is the beauty of the devotees. They're so kind. Even their curses are actually blessings. Narad expressed anger at the two demigods, not just at their ignorance, but also at their pride. Nala, Kuvera, and Manigriva didn't seem to care, remained proud and indignant. Narad cursed them to become trees. However, Narad wanted the demigods to advance spiritually. So there they are, Nalkuvera and Manigriva. Narad Munis come. They're not showing any restraint, whereas the girls are. Therefore, even in the body of trees, he would allow them to be fully conscious of their past offenses. Also to remember Narad's teachings, which he expressed to them for their spiritual upliftment. And to be aware of their surroundings. Because as trees, normally the consciousness is extremely low. But Narad Muni granted them or gave them far more greater consciousness in the form of the tree. This was unlike normal trees. In this way, their progress to pure devotion would not be impeded. Narad thought, I cannot give them a curse that does not result in bhakti. This is such a pure devotee. He's always thinking about the welfare, not just of the devotees, but of the non-devotees. When the demigods heard the curse, in one sense they were relieved, as it could have been much worse. Narad could have cursed them to become demons. However, they made one request. O Lord, your punishment is suitable. However, if we must be trees, please allow us to take birth in the holy land of Vrindavan. By drinking Yamuna water, by standing in Vraja's soil, and by being in the company of desire trees, we will obtain the seed of pure devotion. Narad was pleased. He completed the curse by informing the demigods that Krishna was to appear on earth after 20,000 years. They would stand in the courtyard of his father's residence. This is phenomenal support. After witnessing Krishna's pastimes as an infant, the Lord would personally deliver them from the curse. Before the Apsara's unbelieving eyes, Nalakuver and Managriva disappeared from Kailash and appeared in the faraway Gokul as twin saplings. Narad turned towards the Apsaras, who were motionless in fear of also being cursed. But Narad simply gave them a warning glance. Although they had behaved indecently, they had shown shame and remorse. They witnessed the activities of Narad, and the seed of devotion was planted in their hearts. And eventually they will excel as Vaishnavis amongst celestials. Narad was on his way to Vaikuntha to see Lord Vishnu. But having cursed devotees of Lord Shiva, he decided instead to go to Badrikaksham and disclose his heart and mind to Naranarayan Rishi. Having relieved the history of how the two demigods came to become trees in Gokul, Krishna knew that the initiative was his. Narad had promised the demigods that Krishna would free them from the curse, and Krishna, duty-bound to keep the promise of his devotees, would act according to Narad's will. He thought, Narad is very dear to me. For his sake I will free the demigods and bless them with supreme devotion and send them back to their abode. Leaning forward, Lord Damodar, began to slowly crawl on his hands and knees. His friends watched. They were spellbound audience of a drama, too enthralled to move or speak. They were frozen, actually. They were just watching. Sometimes Damodar pulled the motor. Sometimes the motor moved on its own. Both the rope and motor were spiritual forms and could act according to their own will. Both wanted to serve Krishna in their own way. Slowly, the distance between Damodar and the trees was closing. Intently gazing at his destination, Damodar took another few effortless steps while the motor positioned itself between the two trees. For the first time since they had appeared, the demigods felt the touch of Supreme Lord via the conduit of the rope and the motor. They shriveled in ecstasy. The Gopas were still up the hill, chanting and joking and fully enjoying Damodar's adventures. The two trees felt an intolerable pressure leaning against them. Then gradually, gracefully, the stately Arjun trees were uprooted. As the trees fell, their branches and trunks did not touch Damodar. The sound created was terrible. The first sound was the crack of the trees being uprooted, and the second was the crash of their hitting the ground. The sound was so loud that it caused the residents of Gokul to faint in shock. Only Krishna's friends were unaffected, covering their ears with their hands. They continued to sit where they were, calm and fearless. But when they tried to stand in order to help Krishna, they were unable to. Yoga Maya had immobilized them. Krishna needed some time alone to deliver Nalakuvera and Manigriva. So the boys couldn't do anything. They couldn't come close because Krishna had some things to say to Nalakuvera and Manigriva. Thus the boys remained curiously immobile, but able to cast wondering glances at each other. Krishna stood between the fallen trees and laughed just to show his immense progress to the Gopas. The thin rope for churning yogurt assumed such strength by the Lord's mercy. Seated on the ground with his legs spread before him, Krishna entertained himself by flicking the rope and watching it wave to the mortar. He laughed to see the ropes dancing. Although Krishna could uproot the powerful Arjun trees, he was unable to free himself of his mother's rope of affection. Suddenly the two effulgent forms of Nalakuvera and Manigriva emerged from the fallen trees. So the trees have been uprooted and the demigods appear before Krishna. Although they had been naked at the time of being cursed, they were now richly attired in celestial clothes, ornaments, and crowns. Narad had ensured that they would not be unclothed when appearing before the Lord. The demigods rose in the air, and their striking beauty radiated splendor throughout the surroundings. The demigods thought, "Here is the Supreme Lord, for whom we have been waiting for so long." They bowed before the Lord. Krishna continued to play with the rope and mortar. He acknowledged their presence with a brief glance. However, he seemed more interested in playing than in the demigods. The demigods had a wonderful exchange with Krishna and offered praise to the Lord while the Lord played. In their bewilderment, the demigods just shook their heads and kneeled before Krishna and said, "We cannot understand your Lordship. In trying to do so, we become confused and disorientated. Therefore, it is better that we simply offer our obeisances unto you and chant your names and glories." Krishna then stopped playing and turned his full attention to the demigods. "You are right. I am the Supreme Lord. But if you fail to know me, then how can you say that I am who you think I am?" So he's catching out the demigods. This confused the demigods even more. And seeing their plight, Krishna showed mercy on the brothers and showed him his two-handed form with the flute. The demigods were in ecstasy and then offered wonderful praise and prayers. Understanding that the Brijvasis would soon be coming due to the noise of the falling of the trees, the demigods asked Krishna's permission to depart. Before leaving, they requested that they become servants of the Gopas. Pleased by their humility, he advised them to go to Narad, and by his grace, he will fulfill their desire. He also told them that they can ask for a boon, and they asked to be blessed with pure devotion. They also offered further prayers, which made Krishna laugh. As he was shackled to the mortar, he thought, "These are not really ropes, but bonds of my mother's love. When I am bound by her love, demigods are bound by my Maya. Although they call me the Lord of Gokul, I am tied like a calf. What kind of Lord is that? While they praise me, the scolding of mother is so much more pleasing. So he prefers the telling off by the mother to the prayers of the sages and the demigods. Krishna replied, your past life and Narad's kindness to you is well known to me. Had Narad not desired it, I would never have shown mercy to you offenders. That would be that. That would have been contrary to everything I stand for. However, Narad was kind to you, regardless of your offensive behavior, and awarded you punishment that would bring you to your senses. He took away the source of your blindness, which was your wealth. But by Narad's mercy, you have already been freed from your bondage. Therefore, ask for my mercy gratuitously. Had you not seen Narad, you would not be seeing me. Hence, your suffering would have continued. So, this is a phenomenal interaction between the Lord and the two demigods. Krishna wanted to wrap up the conversation with the two demigods so that he can get on with the more important matter of playing with the Gopas. Raising his right hand in a gesture of blessing, Krishna said, Nalakuver and Manigriva, you may both return home, where your family is eagerly waiting you. As for your desire to be always absorbed in my service, I assure you it will be fulfilled in a way that your domestic life will not pose an obstacle. Whatever you want will be fulfilled by Narad's desire. By his grace, you have developed love for me and thus attained the topmost goal of life. Keep Narad always in your heart. And because I am always in his heart, you shall never be separated from me. Your material existence has now come to an end. Nalakuver and Manigriva were heartbroken to leave the Lord, but they had to. Bowing down one more time, the demigods turned and rose into the sky and sorrowfully looked back at Gokul, which had been their home for so long. They left for heaven. With the demigods gone, Krishna was now free to resume his role as cowherd boy. He longed for his friends. Standing up to better see over the fallen branches, he caught sight of them in the distance and signaled to them to come play with me. The boys were now free from their invisible bonds and were reunited with their glorious friend, embracing him. They didn't know whether to cheer Krishna or to caution him. Wait till your mother sees your latest antics and you think the mortar punishment was bad. She will tie you to these other trees and make you stay here overnight. The boys laughed at Krishna. However, Krishna crossed his arm and said in defiance, I can pull mountains if I want to. The boys laughed. Raising his voice, he said, wait and see. Not only will I move a mountain, but I will also lift it. You wait and see. Which he does. Govardhan. Sridharma said, we will wait for that day, but now tell us, who were those two beings you were talking to? The boys had seen what happened and described that to Krishna. However, Krishna tried to downplay his role in toppling the trees. These boys could never hold a secret. So Krishna said, there were spirits living in the tree who broke out of the tree when their curse finished. The gopis were not convinced, but Krishna changed the subject, the gopas, and started playing with the mortar, a new game. In the meantime, the Brajvasis looked around to see what could have caused such a terrible noise. Sounded like thunder, but the sky was clear. Some gopis visiting from Raval came across Krishna and his friends playing amongst the fallen trees, and they reported this to Yashoda Mai. She thought the trees had fallen on Krishna. She fainted out of great anxiety. In her faint, mother was in a panic and was running towards Krishna to rescue him, but actually the ladies were trying to revive her. In the meantime, Nanda Maharaj had returned with Rohini and Balaram. Nanda Baba quickly headed towards the scene of the calamity. Perhaps a demon had attacked Krishna again. The Gopas took sticks as weapons. Some of the boys noticed the cowherd men coming and warned Krishna, "You're in real trouble now." Krishna told the boys to hide. The boys were giggling and with Krishna having great fun in the adventure. The cowherd men looked for Krishna, but not seeing him, they looked for demons or signs of demons like footprints, but found nothing. At that time, Yashoda and her friends arrived, and she was frantic with worry. It is said that the force of the devotee's pure ecstasy can reach such heights as to neutralize Krishna's divinity. This is a really interesting point. Their love is so intense that Krishna cannot access his divinity. This is incredible. With his mother present, Krishna was unable to remain hidden. He whispered to his friends, "Let us surprise them before they discover us." So Krishna and his friends started playing with the motor in the open, and when the Brijbasis saw them safe, they were elated. How did he appear so suddenly, especially as he was struggling with the motor? At first, the Brijbasis could not make the connection between Krishna, the motor, and the trees. However, Yashoda may recognize the relation between the three, and she thought to herself, what if the trees had fallen on Krishna? She was speechless and immobile. When her husband and others rushed to Krishna, Yashoda may remained where she was, fighting to see her tears, fighting to see through her tears. So that's chapter 10 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We can stop there. Any questions, any comments? These are the two chapters which discuss this incredible Leela. Okay, we can stop there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Damodar Leela ki jai.